Hello, welcome to Transcendental Waves. I'm Jeff Bailey.
And I'm Michael Burrows. Today we're going to be talking about Wu Wei, Wuwei. I like to define Wu Wei as effortless action, but it has a few different types of meanings. I found out about Wu Wei about 4 or 5 years ago. Jeff, have you heard of Wu Wei?
Um, I've heard of it, and it is something that I've always kind of thought of as like a go with the flow, but it's a weird contradiction because, like you said, it's the effortless action. There's a bunch of different like translations out there, the actionless action, and like no action. And it to me it's not a term of just like lay around and be lazy though.
Right. A simplified person might look at it as Wu Wei of not doing anything, and that would be lazy. But it's really the art of going with the flow. That's how I like to look at it. And it's almost like if you hear of people that are in their flow state, when maybe musicians or athletes, or philosophers or anything. That's kind of like it's like living in that state. That's how I look at Wu Wei, and it's like your art of your daily life of being in the flow state. How do you look at it?
I kind of like look at it as like a zen thing, or like the yin and the yang, as far as being in the law, like natural law of things, I guess, and just like not not forcing anything.
Yeah, it's really about not forcing, and so that brings us into a good discussion of why are so many people forcing things on people? And if people would stop forcing their ideas and their beliefs on people, perhaps they themselves would have a more peaceful life. And that's really what Wu Wei I think is at the core of, is trying to get us to subdue these passions of traditions and beliefs to kind of living in the moment of here and now. And whatever happens in your life, you're just in a constant state of dance. And so you can just dance around whatever happens while it's happening to you. And that way it doesn't interfere with whatever's going on in your life.
Like water around a rock.
Yeah,
I've always thought of it as like release and control, like the way water splashes around a rock, and slowly over time the water will win. The rocks erode, the water never stops flowing,
that's
type
right.
thing. I've always looked at Wu Wei as something like that, as release and control. But I like the way you said getting into your flow state, because it's a very similar thing. Like, you say like these artists, athletes, when they get in the zone and they're in the flow state, they're really just like they've built these talents through action. Like they've practiced and practiced these things and they've gotten the action. But when they release their desires to do this or to do that, and they just let their talents flow through their body,
Yes,
like
that's
they can naturally
exactly.
do these
That's
things that
it.
are way beyond things that when these
Right.
similar people will have the similar level of talent, but because they can't release their body to just flow and do, there's different mentalities, but that we often get in our way because we desire control over every little thing.
Right. Yeah, we want to control everything. We want to control what we're eating, where we're going, what religion. Like we want to control our neighbors. A lot of times we want to feel safe. We want to be in a community of like-minded people. We don't want people with different views really coming about and making us really question our own beliefs. I mean, it's okay if we make them question their beliefs, and we expect them to have an open mind to our ideas. But a lot of times we're not so easily mind open to other people's ideas. And I think Wu Wei helps us see that others' ideas are just as valuable as ours. But a lot of people, I don't think, really understand what that means. Because if you accept someone else's ideas as valuable as yours, that means you have to at least consider them as true as yours. And that's a very hard thing to do for someone who's been living in a culture that has said this is how reality really is.
I guess by like the release control way of looking at it, that's kind of the what Wu Wei was always to me, with the like it kind of helped like describe the yin and the yang, the Dharma to the Brahman, like the Sophia to God. Like it
Hmm.
just like it helps define these relationships as the natural order, and like you see all these different cultures like looking to describe these like the natural laws, and it's like just the Taoists say, you know, all these laws and rules and stuff we've created in the names of all these gods is ridiculous, and it's kind of like release control of the environment. Like you can believe what you want to believe, control yourself. Don't worry about controlling the world around you.
Dude, one of my favorite Taoist teachers is Jesus Christ. And when he says, sell all your possessions and come with me, I mean, it doesn't get any more Wu Wei than that. Like, you just are going with the flow. Nature's gonna provide. You know, the world's gonna provide. Things are gonna just fall into place once you get into the flow. But I'm telling you, it's hard to get into that flow. It's hard to release. I don't know if it's, trauma bond. It's hard to release the bonds, whether it's trauma bonds, whether it's society bonds, culture bonds, indoctrinational bonds, political bonds, religious bonds. There's so many bonds that that open up your life and make it better once you break free of.
It's crazy because I mean, you're talking about Jesus, and then going with the flow, and the Jesus fish is the symbol is going against the flow. But immediately after, you talk about like in order to go with the flow and the actual like divine flow, you do have to break all these bonds and in a sense go against the flow of what you've been taught. Like unlearning
Yes.
something new every day. Like keep continue to just like go with the law of nature and stop like fitting into all these like man-made structures that we've created for society to work in, like and all these like little rules in it. We often do this with good intentions. A lot of these systems are set up with good intentions, but it feeds into these fear-based cycles, and we actually create slaves and prisoners, and it's just it really the Wu Wei aspect of things, and going with the flow teaches you to just like see the love and the light and move in that direction. It doesn't mean to stop taking action. The effortless action is that action which takes no effort. You realize that like it's meant to be. Like we're doing things that with a purpose.
I like how you said, it's that unlearning things. Going. We're not saying to go against the flow, as if like we want you to put so much energy out into protesting and switching everyone's ideas. Really, what we're saying, go against the flow, is unlearning. If you take something and unlearn it every day, think of how many new ways you will look at the universe and reality. It's just mind blowing. I read this book one day called Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza. And he said, the best way to change your mind is to do something different every day. And when you start doing that, your life changes. When you start doing things different every day, think of how many days of your life that is of you just doing something different. I mean, it is life changing. And it's one of the things that opened me up to seeing how maybe the way that I was raised, the culture I was brought up into, the systems I was part of, the organizations, the church, the army, all these things, maybe they kind of forced their ideas and beliefs on me, and I didn't get to make those for myself. And I didn't realize that until a few years ago.
That's the thing. We live in this illusion of choice for so long that we do believe we're making these choices, and to a certain extent I do think that like we have to like step outside and take responsibility for ourselves and not, not blame everything on everybody else, but the system is set up the way it is. I mean, we're taught very specific things in school, and I mean, yeah, when you get in the army or like each independent organization, I mean, when you go to work for a place, they have a training manual, like, and there's just like these same methods are taught in different at different levels of society, and it's
Standard
like,
operating procedure
yeah,
manual, right?
it's like they use what they know about human psychology and how to imprint knowledge on you, whatever they want you to know or repeat, and
Right.
it's just like
You're
we're
just a
taught
cog.
what to think, not how to think.
Right, because all you're supposed to do is think and do what you're supposed to do in that cog of that machine. But once like so if you start thinking about other things than what you're doing, now we got to find someone to replace you. Man, we really need this machine to do exactly what we want it to do. Because
And because we're taught to do, we're very outside of this Wu Wei principle and everything. Like that's what causes this like stress and anxiety and depression is because we're all being taught what our little cog is supposed to do, and our body and our soul is telling us this is not natural
this is
and
not what we're supposed to
this is
be
not
doing.
what we're supposed to do. Like
I'm,
it's not that we're not supposed to have to do anything. Like we are meant to labor to a certain extent. Like I mean, we're meant to exercise and remain healthy. Like that's part of it. I mean, I think that a lot of the like stress and anxiety, like Wu Wei is a very hard term to like pin down, but go with the flow. There's a lot of these little affirmations out there that teach us that like, we're not supposed to be stressing the little things, stuff like that. And like we create little things. Our society creates things for us to stress about. Like that's what I'm saying. The system is set up to be stressful. The system is set up to make it hard to eat healthy. Like it's hard to be a good human and go with the flow in the way society is set up right now.
yeah, and it's almost it's very hard. And one of the ways it's so hard is once you start being spontaneous and breaking free of all these traditions with people around you, they start to look at you as you've lost your mind or you've fallen off the bandwagon or you're the black sheep or you've you've maybe got issues. I mean, it's really crazy, sometimes to get outside of whatever culture you're part of. And I mean, sometimes your friends will change. And you know how hard it is to change friends that you think you've had forever just because you start thinking different? I mean, I've lost friends like that. I got people that used to call me for things. We used to meet up, and I used to see at different places. And now it's just like once you break out of the box of doing everything in loops, you're not invited back. They don't want you to come in there because then you're disrupting all the other people in the box too, and the box wants to be full of people.
The loops need more loops.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're doing a different shape, they're like, whoa, 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 you got to get out of here.
So many times in mental health issues, people are talking about like, oh man, I need to get out of this cycle or this loop. Wu Wei is the act of living outside of all loops and cycles, because nothing's the exact same. And once you can see this, you can really form your own reality in a dance of more enjoyable life, more peaceful life. Because whatever life throws at you, you're gonna dodge it or just let it go right through you. And
Like water.
yeah,
Uh, I think it was Bruce Lee that said something about like kung fu was like being like water, and like, you know, you're just like in that flow state of just like,
is you think it's ironic that probably America is like one of the most capitalistic, materialistic countries in the world, if not the most. And it's nothing like Wu Wei. And we're the most depressed country in the world. So maybe if we were less like America is now and more like Wu Wei philosophy, our depression rates would go down.
well, I mean, I don't know that there are a lot of places in the world that are very wu wei. I mean, there are a lot of places that are trying to be, but because of places like us, and I mean, the place where wu wei was invented is not very wu wei anymore.
Yeah, it's a Chinese thing. And China's changed over the years. They had many different things. And right now, I don't seem very open minded, going with the flow of life stance, does it?
No, I mean these philosophies, I mean, have just been like a thing that we've known for a long time, and I'm really just waiting for like that critical mass of people to like finally come along and be wu wei or live in light, be like just be good humans. And watch the world change, man. Like I don't know that like I mean America is not leading the way in Wu Wei. I don't know that like the religion that is the most popular here is conducive to Wu Wei either. Even though we talked about Jesus earlier, and like Jesus was very go with the flow and cast your materials aside. Like I mean,
And very anti-establishment. He didn't like the religious institutions of the day.
no, our biggest churches like our our Christian churches and their giant businesses in this
He would
country.
hate these churches today too.
Yeah.
I would love to see a real Jesus come back. Oh man, just flip over all these churches right now and just be like, people, we tried to tell you, but now Jesus will.
I mean, the crazy thing is like I believe what you said has happened a bunch of times. There has been Jesuses that have came on this earth and have tried to like show people the light, and it's just like the same exact shit that happened to Jesus happens to them.
You
They're
know,
either assassinated, they're discredited, they're getting we we throw these people aside because we're so scared to like live life differently on this planet.
right. So call me Mr. Optimist, but I think maybe all those people are like little sparks of a fire
Mm.
trying to get started. And one day someone's gonna spark that shit.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
then boom, quantum change.
And I do that. That's how I look at like collective consciousness and just
Yeah.
like we're just like building that. That's what I'm saying. When we get to that critical mass of people,
Yeah, that
and then
yep.
it's just like the fire started, and we've changed, and you start to see the flow and how everything is provided for us when we take care of the world around us. We look at this earth as something that is us and as we are a part of the person next to us. We build for the future. Like this planet is full of everything we could ever possibly want or need and more if we don't fight over it. And like that's what like all these, you know, Jesus was one of those. And like there's arguments over the Jesus of the Bible, and I like we'll do episodes, and we'll probably do a million episodes about the different names of Jesus and where it comes from. But like that story exists because we have a chance to be better. Like that's what we have to like start to look at that for. Like the Buddhas, the Krishnas, the Mohammeds, they exist because we have a chance to be better. And like we've told, like, these are people telling their people that we have a chance to be better. But if we look at it as a world story, like we have a chance to be better.
You know, I was married and I was married at 24 and for like 7 years. I didn't know how to love another human because I didn't even know how to love myself properly. And it's like now that I know how to love myself, I mean, I help people all the time, with things. It's like you can't help someone else until you've helped yourself fully. Then you can just help so many people with more potential. And when that happens, your your life just changes and it's so rewarding. And I think a lot of times, people around here, they want to love like Jesus, but they don't even really know how Jesus loved. They've been given a false impression of his love. And so it's almost the opposite of Jesus. And it's almost like it just maybe that's why his message never really picked off and changed the world.
That's why it's not Wu Wei. Like it is definitely like one of the like we turned it into a very like crusades of an inquisition,
Yeah.
like a
Forcing,
yeah, the forcing it into people's minds, and it's just like, and that's the whole thing is like when it turned into like you have to believe in Jesus Christ. This is the Son of God, the virgin birth, and it wasn't a live like this man and we can change the world thing, and it that was I mean, within the first few hundred years. I don't know how fast it happened. The Bible was practically done being written a few hundred years after his birth, and it took about 1,500 years to compile it totally. And they had it a few hundred years after he's done. That's like the permanent one. We've translated a few different languages here and there, but like that's the end of it. Like, I mean, it just seems so tainted from what, like,
What his real message could have been, or
yeah, like
what
what it
is or was.
was. Yeah,
Yeah.
what it was, and like even like
As a Christian, I think sometimes we get into Bible history, and that Bible history sometimes we learn things about Jewish history, and I remember hearing about Sadducees and Pharisees, these sides, in the Bible. But when you start looking into the history, do you know there's another sect, called the Essenes? I mean, they're never talked about, and it's not in the Bible. It's not in, churches anywhere. They never mention it. And I swear, one day we're going to uncover something where the Sadducees and Pharisees, all they were the same day, Democrats and Republicans. They're just political sides. And those Essenes were the middle way, and they were the go with the flow guys, and nobody likes them. Both sides want to murder those guys because these guys are just about, being friends with everybody. Everything's, love and joy and go with, the universe. And so nobody that wants to, have control and power likes the middle guys.
no,
Just
that
like now, nobody likes the libertarians or the independent people. If you're a Republican, no,
they don't want a middle ground. They
no,
create
no side
polar
wants a
opposites.
middle ground.
Right. And like the whole thing is like when we talk about the Wu Wei and it is the middle road, and like you dig into these like ancient principles the way Jesus taught, or like you go further back to like Hermes and stuff where it's like all all energy is the same energy, and all these like different polar opposites are created from the same energy, just steered in different directions. And it's like you can't have anger without love, or hate without love. You can't have anger without happiness. Like they exist on the same spectrum. It's just
Is it a positive
yeah.
or a negative emotion, of the time? And we get to decide those. We can create those things in our mind. Um, you know, so many people are still thinking heaven's real, like a literal place. Like we are in heaven, we are in space on a giant jet plane, called the Earth, traveling through the heavens right now. And yesterday, last night, I I went on Google and said, "Is heaven like literally real?" And it said like in 2008, Pope whoever at this time says, heaven is not a literal place. It is a state of mind. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, the secret's out of the bag. Like the the Pope of the Catholic Church, who's responsible for all Christianity everywhere, like all Christianity stems from Catholicism, has just told you the secret that there is no literal fucking heaven, and nobody cares. They just want to ignore it like it's not a thing.
Well, we were talking about church becoming a business. That I was watching something about like how to study the Bible, and it seems more about like being able to sell the Bible as like literal truth and the Word of God over like
It's the
what it
only
like
yeah.
over it being just like a historical document, because it was a book that people thought were very important when they were putting it together. But you also have to realize that it was religion has always been a cultural tool to control and manipulate people. Like,
Right.
like
And a lot of people just didn't have, back when that Bible was written, there wasn't newspapers, man. You didn't get your information about life anywhere else except going to a church and them telling you what life was about. I mean, thank God we have technology now at our fingertips. I mean, back then, when this was all started, nobody knew anything, and they went there, like looking for the answers, and that's where they get. The church don't have the answers anymore.
well, it wasn't even that they like weren't always. that was the only place, like you said, to get answers. And the church, like, there's always been very smart people that realized, like, these people like need answers for these questions. We don't have the answers, so we can make them up. Like,
Yep.
and it's just like, so they realize that, like, okay, government is one way we can control these people, like, but we can only see these people so many hours a day. How do we control them when we can't see them? Tell them we can see them, like, and now, like, we realize that a lot of these, like, divine overlord type taskmaster gods that have been created throughout time is an archetype because people seek control. Like, in psychologically, like, there's always been people that have understood this. Like, we have the same brain size as we have for the last, like, couple hundred thousands of years, maybe up to 6 million years. It's debatable, but, like, we haven't evolved that much since we've become modern humans as far as brain size. So, like, to think that we're just now this smart enough to do understand the way that other people think and look at the world is silly. And it's just like, there's always been people that have been smart enough to understand that, and they've created stories or took built upon more ancient stories in order to give people a structure to live their life. And most of it, like we were saying earlier, a lot of these rules and ethic systems are made out of good to help people, but it creates slaves to a god or prisoners to a system to where they're never good enough. They don't fit into their cog anymore. And it's like, especially nowadays, like, we're s- we're worshiping religions that are thousands of years old at this point that need a little bit of an update, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, let's see about some takeaways from today. I can think of some takeaways like, guys, Wu Wei, be spontaneous. Don't get so upset when things happen. Try to open your mind. And that can look like so many different things, but doing different things, reading different new things, learning about new things, those are all ways to open your mind. Jeff, what's some takeaways?
I was just sitting here thinking, you know, what would Jesus do? But what would water do? Like, flow like water. Like, when you run into an obstacle, what would water do? Like.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, we love you guys. Take care. Subscribe, follow. Y'all, we're hitting new records, and we appreciate and love you so much.
Thanks, guys. Peace out.